Hello, and thank you for joining us today in our study of the book of Psalms. Today we're in Psalm 66, and this is going to be yet another psalm of David that is going to be devoted to praise and adoration for God. It's not going to necessarily be about all of the bad things that are going on, but rather it is going to be to point our hearts and to point our eyes toward the works and the power and the majesty of our Creator. So let's look at what David says here in Psalm 66. Beginning in verse 1, we read, "Make a joyful shout to God, all the earth. Sing out the honor of his name. Make his praise glorious. Say to God, how awesome are your works! Through the greatness of your power, your enemies shall submit themselves to you. All the earth shall worship you and sing praises to you. They shall sing praises to your name. Come and see the works of God. He is awesome in his doing toward the sons of men. He turned the sea into dry land. They went through the river on foot. There we will rejoice in him. He rules by his power forever. His eyes observe the nations. Do not let the rebellious exalt themselves. O bless our God, you peoples, and make the voice of his praise to be heard, who keeps our soul among the living, and does not allow our feet to be moved. For you, O God, have tested us. You have refined us as silver is refined. You brought us into the net. You laid affliction on our backs. You have caused men to ride over our heads. We went through fire and through water, but you brought us out to rich fulfillment. I will go into your house with burnt offerings. I will pay you my vows which my lips have uttered, and my mouth has spoken when I was in trouble. I will offer you burnt sacrifices of fat animals, with the sweet aroma of rams. I will offer bulls with goats. Come and hear, all you who fear God, and I will declare what he has done for my soul. I cried to him with my mouth, and he was extolled with my tongue. If I regard iniquity in my heart, the Lord will not hear. But certainly God has heard me. He has attended to the voice of my prayer. Blessed be God, who has not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me." Here, David in this psalm is going to talk about several of the reasons why we should praise and honor and glorify God. He begins the psalm by talking about the joyful shout that we should make and the fact that everyone should be grateful and should say to God, how awesome are your works and how wonderful are your deeds. And then he's going to focus in on a couple of different statements that I want you to look at today with me. The first one is he says to come and see. Come and see the works of God. Now, he's going to begin in this section by talking about seeing the works of God and the awesome thing that he has done for the sons of men. And he's going to go back to the crossing of the Red Sea and the crossing of the Jordan River, back in the days of Moses and Joshua. He talks about how that he turned the sea into dry land when they went through the river on foot. There we will rejoice in him. The power of God being illustrated, even though that happened hundreds of years before David. David is going to point back to it as a living illustration of the power of God. And then he talks about the fact, bless our God, you peoples, and make the voice of his praise to be heard, who keeps our soul among the living and does not allow our feet to be moved. You have the blessing of having a God who does not want to leave you to your own devices, who wants to be there for you, who wants to help you. But we have to turn our hearts to him. And we have to remember what we see when we see the power and the majesty of God. But in the second place, he doesn't just say to come and see. and even come and see the trials and the tests and everything that the people go through, and all of the different ways where we are brought to a place of trusting in God. But then he says in verse 14, or verse 16 rather, come and hear. Come and hear, all you who fear God, and I will declare what he has done for my soul. And then he closes the psalm by talking about how he has cried out to God and God has heard his prayer, that he does not hold iniquity in his heart, because if he holds iniquity, if he doesn't really mean what he's saying, if he's just throwing out words and has no intention of living for God, David says he will not hear my prayer. So he says, to those who fear God, come and hear all that God does. To those who serve him and then reach out to him, come and see, come and hear, but above all, come and glorify the God of hosts. Here you have in Psalm 66, David making for us a picture of the power and the majesty of God. And he closes in verse 20 by saying, blessed be God, who has not turned away my prayer, nor his mercy from me. As we seek to serve God, we can have the same solace, we can have the same joy and rejoicing that we have God at our disposal, that he wants to help us, that he is looking out for our best interests, and that he cares about us. Therefore, we have the obligation to serve him. And in doing so, to remember what we see, to remember what we hear, and to give honor and praise to him. These are some of the things that I see in Psalm 66. There's a lot more that we could talk about in detail from this psalm, but our time is up for today. Thank you for joining us for this video. Next time we'll come back and examine Psalm 67. I hope that you'll join us then. But until then, have a great day.